I'm really proud to show you my book collection.
Yeah, they've got some great books. I tell you actually you might not get much out of it. It's very English, but he's a really elegant writer. Jonathan Mead.
What's that?
He's an architecture expert, is it? That's his main thing, is architecture, but he'll write about anything. It's terrific.
There's one book I got, because I heard you talking about it on the BBC.
Against Nature.
No, and I found here it is. Beautiful copy of this. Come on. And I bought this because I heard you talking about it. Confessions
of an English opium
eater.
That's an original.
Yeah. Isn't that
Thomas de Quincey. He took it for neuralgia. He took it. They always got on it for medical reasons back then, you know what I mean? And then found out they couldn't live without it. Look at the aging process.
Isn't that a beautiful book?
That's gorgeous, yeah. Yeah, he's good, yeah. Thomas de Quincey. That was for an Open University programme on the BBC, wasn't it?
It was great. You were talking about all these classic books, or books that were overlooked, I think.
Yeah.
What do you remember most about this book?
So he's just... I read it so long ago.
So he's just a junkie?
Yeah, there's that about it, yeah.
Because
I'm always interested to know what what the Victorians' attitude to it was. You know, there was a kind of a. It wasn't right. Although you could buy it from many outlets quite legally. Mm-hmm. There was a certain social
taboo or ugliness to it, like a stigma.
That's a good way of putting it, ugliness. Yeah.
Because you talk about in your book, which is great, like you having to score dope and all the, horrible situations you put yourself in.
Only that would make you do it.
Yeah.
Only that would make you do it.
So is that how? What do you remember about the Confessions of the Opium Addict? He's doing stuff like that?
Well, he was an obsessive character anyway. He was obsessed with.
I highlight all my books.
With the Bebop Deluxe Tour taught me how to roll with the punches. Like all artists, I have a delicate ego, and what I require from an audience is a unanimous display of carefully considered adulation. In Glasgow, this was not forthcoming, but, put it into perspective. Nobody died.
You really know how to pop a sentence.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, naturally enough, given Mr. Malone's energetic lifestyle, he had a preference for those verses that featured military exploits. The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson, Vitae Lampada by Sir Henry Newbolt, Tommy by Rudyard Kipling, and The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes, a verbal gallop of a poem recording a gentleman on the road's last ride. Not every poem was an imperial shoot-'em-up. Mr. Malone also had a soft spot for the romantics of the 19th century. The Lady of Shalott by Tennyson, Wordsworth's Daffodil Number, Natch and the Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah. Great. It's a long time since I read this book. It's worth every penny.
It is.
I would say that would.
Thank you for sending me a copy of it. I love it.
That would learn.
It's a great read.
She returned with this shambolic skinny guy looking like Geronimo's ugly kid brother. Shuffling gait, long greasy hair and a bandana. Unshaven, no teeth at the front. He looked American, so I thought he was one of the many draft dodgers in Amsterdam who weren't there, man, but nevertheless got a dope habit and stuck around. The place was full of them anyway. Nico turned to me and said, "It's the guy," and introduced us. Her guy was standing there looking at this handful of various size wraps, and he lifted his head up, looked at me straight in the face, and in a barely audible semi-whisper said, "Hi." That was Chet Baker.
That's the story.
The James D. The James Dean of blue-eyed jazz. The unbelievably handsome fucker who modelled Arrow shirts for Esquire magazine. Fucking pussy magnet #1. So no wonder I didn't recognise him. Not even when I heard his voice, and to think I could have been dining out on that for 20 years. See what I mean? I could be a worse name dropper than I actually am.
Chet Baker, Tom Waits.
Yeah. Great, good to read it again. Walking Back to Happiness was recorded live at the Marquee in Wardour Street and featured numbers including Gabardine Angus, Majorca and Swan.
How successful was the book?
They're really pleased with it. I asked them. I keep drilling them.
Oh, we got a star. It's even more important if it has a star next to it.
What Declan and I, this is Elvis Costello, right?
Yeah.
What Declan and I had in common was the preposition. What Declan and I had in common was the presupposition of mass literacy. Generally, people who liked me liked him and vice versa, and we would go on to work a lot with each other. As his lyrics would suggest, he was quite intense, intelligent and thoughtful, but like so many people of that nature, he also had a great sense of humour and was very easy company. He wasn't always on. His net has always been wide, eclectic. He and I shared an interest in books, movies, comedians, and unusually for the time, and our punk milieu, the Great American Songbook. Because his dad sang with a big band, as you know. Elvis Costello's dad was named Ross McManus, and he was one of the Joe Loss band. Every English dance band was on the American model, the kind of Stan Kent and Paul Whiteman kind of big band model, whereby you would have a close harmony vocal group. You would feature a close harmony vocal group that featured 2 male singers and a woman. They could sing as a close harmony vocal group, but each could sort of take a solo turn. The girl would do a torch song. One of the guys would do the up-tempo stuff, and the other guy would be the balladeer. And Elvis Costello's dad, Ross McManus, was the balladeer of the Joe Loss Orchestra, so he handled the Tony Bennett stuff, Jack Jones, Vic Damone, Sinatra, that kind of end of the park. And the other guy, Larry Gretton, would do the more up-tempo stuff. And Rose Brennan, the girl, would do the torch songs. But they could all sing, as I say, like the Meltones. I don't really remember them. They were they were a close harmony vocal group. I can't remember the band they were featured with, but the Meltones was the springboard for Mel Tormé.
He was supposed to be really fantastic.
Oh, really fantastic. Yeah, he was. He was extremely musical. He would write jazz operas and things of this nature on the piano, but you didn't have to know that. He was just a great close harmony singer and a great solo performer. Mel Tormé, yeah. The Meltones.
I think you should write more books like this.
About
of your stories and your musical knowledge, your historical knowledge. Like, so much comes out in this book.
Well, I had a lot of enforced idleness as a child, whereby I would have nothing else to do but observe, just shit, just observing shit and getting an angle on stuff. It's all I had to do, really, because I was sort of enforced idle as tuberculosis. It meant that I read a lot of Reader's Digest, anything. You put anything in front of me with any printed matter on it, I would have to read it. It was like a...
Were those like kind of boring bread and like...
I used to like them. There was one article, One Man Against the Chinese. Oh, Christ, that guy's got his work cut out. But only in the Reader's Digest do you get titles like that. You know, One Man Against the Chinese.
Wow.
It pays to increase your word power towards more picturesque speech. You know, I don't know whether these are still featured in the still going, isn't it, Reader's Digest?
Yeah, it is.
I know it is because a few Christmases ago I had to compile a fake dictionary, which was a word with 3 alternative meanings. One that sounds like it ought to be the case, one that is nowhere near the case, and one that is the actual explanation. For instance, there was one, metrosexual. This was a very popular word in London at the time, a metrosexual.
Yeah.
It's somebody who kind of, he's heterosexual, but he's got kind of gay sort of attributes, you know.
He takes care of his hair and his skin.
He uses exfoliant.
Yeah.
You know, and things like that. But he's still a hetero. So it was called metrosexual. It was a phenomenon in the 90s, a metrosexual. David Beckham wearing sarongs.
Yeah.
So he was like he was obviously a top flight athlete.
Yeah.
But he had a feminine side that he was not ashamed to expose, you know, without compromising his heterosexual cachet. And that's a metrosexual, what do you call it? A metrosexual, right? I wrote a poem about it, your metrosexual ex. But that's not the point. What were we talking about? How did we get onto that? Metrosexual.
Mel Torme, oddly enough.
No, it wasn't Mel. It was...
Elvis Costello's father.
Well, we got on some Mel through that. I've lost the thread on this one, on the metrosexual.
But you had to put together a dictionary, and then you
right.
wrote 3 examples.
So one of them was metrosexual, which was a real current word at the time. So my 3 alternatives were something like one who is sexually aroused by the Underground Railway network. One who alternatively,
like
one who desires sex with an entire city. And then there's the real one, which is I don't know, one who although having effeminate qualities, thank you.
Yeah.
One who, although possessing effeminate qualities, is nevertheless heterosexual. So it's all things like that, like, you know, I can't remember any of the other words, but that one sticks out.
That was a good one.
Yeah, but I did about 15 of those for the reader. Bless you.
Excuse me.
I did about 15 of those words for the Reader's Digest.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a fun project.
Payback time for all the pleasure they brought me when I had tuberculosis.
Oh, that's nice.
But I read all them, you know, Classics Illustrated and things like that.
Yeah.
But you become a kind of, at a remove from society. And I guess that's what kind of turned me into a writer, really.
Because you were isolated.
You know, you got to amuse yourself when you're alone.
But why poetry? Like, what struck you about? Because you didn't decide to be a journalist or a novelist or.
No, but poetry,
for someone to like.
But poetry was everywhere. Like, really, after when I was at school, your nursery rhymes, songs. Really, I guess it was songs more than poetry. Because I used to listen to the Great American Songbook. You know, this is pre-Elvis here, and my uncle lived with us. He had a whole package of albums on the Capitol label. You know, Nat King Cole, Sarah Vaughan, Frank Sinatra, all these people. You know, Mel Torme, Buddy Greco. You know, all those pre-rock and Johnny Ray, all these, Frankie Lane, Doris Day, Ella Fitzgerald, you know, real class.
You're a big fan of doo-wop too, right?
Yeah, and bits of early doo-wop, you know, the Ink Spots, the Platters.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just American popular music, really, which was the.
Do you remember what was the first song, like the poetry of the song knocked you out, where you just walked around thinking about these lines?
I walked around thinking about it all because there was no youth culture then. So it was all the music of young adulthood. You know, it was aimed at people that had just come out of the army and had just been reunited or recently married. You know, so they were kind of young parents who, you know, maybe had a night out 2 or 3 times a week at a lounge bar, you know, and that would be the music that they would listen to. And so the lyrics of those songs kind of addressed that demographic. And I thought it was great, especially the stuff, because we always lived in, and there was a connection because we always lived in apartments. This is the first house I've ever lived in now.
The one you're in now?
Yeah. Always we lived in apartments, badly converted inner city apartments, you know. So we had a fire escape. It's in the book about the fire escape, very important that, you know, everybody at school, nobody had a fire escape. They lived in Coronation Street type back-to-back houses. But I lived on a main road in a converted Italianate Victorian villa, you know, badly converted into apartments across from the road from a movie theatre. So I thought I was like living in the city, you know, and I used to, all day I would look out of our vast windows out onto the, you know, the life of, you know, it was a kind of little Jewish area, you know, just sort of, I don't know, it just sparked something up. But the language that I sought out was the language of the American songbook, you know. When I remember a song like that hit me was These Foolish Things by Fats Waller, the Fats Waller version of These Foolish Things, and that line, a tinkling piano in the next apartment.
Wow.
You know. And I thought, well, that's my life, you know, that really spoke to me, that, you know, because, you know, they were badly soundproofed. You could hear domestic fights going on next door and shit like this, you know. It was on a main road, man, in the middle of the city. And it was a great way to live, I thought. It made me a weird kid at school, you know, because I didn't live like anybody else. You know, I saw.
You were like across the street from a movie theater. I saw the picture in the book. Right?
Yeah, that's right. The Rialto. Yeah. And I would see punch-ups and fights and, you know, all kinds of fires. just out of our front lounge window, which was sort of above the street on the second floor. It seemed to me like I lived very high up, but really probably wasn't.
The second floor.
But I could really, you know, I went to the movies a lot. I used to go to the movies 4 times a week with my mum because my dad works away from home. He was an engineer. So he worked in Scotland and all over the place, building power stations and that. And so my mum was at her loose. I was her movie date, really. You know, and she must have been only about 35 or something. You know, and it was, but me and her had an arrangement whereby, in order for me to see 2 Westerns, I had to go and see 3 women. They called them women's pictures. Well. That was the generic title, a women's picture.
Yeah.
So I went to see, you know, lots of Doris Day movies, you know, and romances, you know, and but I really liked them because, you know, there was always something to hook onto, like the American men's fashions in the American suits, you know, that we couldn't get there, those Ivy League.
How did you become so fashionable? Who are your fashion influences?
Fashion influences. You remember the program 77 Sunset Strip?
Yeah.
Roger Smith.
Well, I know it from you telling me about it.
Yeah. Roger Smith in that.
Because we went and looked for the address and it doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't exist. Yeah. So I would say Roger Smith as Jeff Spencer. It was a Private Eye series, obviously set on the Strip, and starring Efren Zimbalist Jr., Ed Cookie Burns, and Jeff Spencer, Roger Smith, who was later married to Anne Margaret.
And he dressed reminiscent of this?
Pardon?
No, your style. But how did he dress? Like cool suits?
It's what later became known as Jivey Ivy. So it was Ivy League, 3-button, natural shoulder, slim lapels. Except it was really cut close, sort of pimp wear. You know, I tell you, exemplified the Jivey Ivy look, actually. more than any of the Rat Pack, Sammy Davis Jr.
Really?
Yeah, the clothes.
Because he was so tailor fit.
So scrawny.
Yeah.
And the suits he had were just out of this world, really. If you'd have told me his tailor came from Mars, I would have believed you. But yeah, Jivey Ivy, they called it. Jivey Ivy. It had gone from Brooks Brothers preppy to kind of slick hipster, you know, with the truncated jacket, you know. They call them Italian suits.
So that's like well, your suit style. You think comes from that?
My suit style.
Yeah.
Never varied.
Never varied.
No, not really.
Really?
No.
Like in the 80s, you didn't start wearing shoulder pads?
No. No, I was right out of the loop in the 80s. Right out of, actually, I did. I tell you, I did. When I went into the last drug clinic I ever went into was in Chelsea, and this was about I came out of there in 1984. And the clothes I entered the clinic in, by the end of the treatment, didn't fit me anymore. They didn't fit me anymore. I couldn't leave the clinic until
because you had gained weight.
Yeah, I was, schlepping around in my pajamas. And then we started getting some real good chicks coming in. So I started having, I better start getting dressed. Maybe it was part of the treatment, I don't know. I thought, I can't go down there in my pajamas. So I started getting dressed again. And I noticed, I was sat opposite in group therapy. I was sat opposite this chick, and this fucking middle button of my Ivy League jacket just shot out like a bullet. I kind of exhaled or something, and this middle button shot out like a bullet from a gun and hit this chick right between the eyes. So anyway, I couldn't go out of there in these clothes. So I had to, but luckily those generously cut rockabilly suits had just taken off in London, you know, with the peg trousers.
Yeah.
And the sort of zooty kind of, like you say, shoulder pads, one button fastening. Because I'd put on so much weight, I couldn't leave the place without. So I gave my manager a few £100 and said, listen, go down to Johnson & Johnson. And that was a real good shop. And then next door to Vivian and Malcolm's shop. But they kitted out the Stray Cats and all them rockabilly bands, you know. They were kind of Johnny Ray suits.
Yeah.
You know, not exactly zoot, but peg trousers, wide shoulders. Yeah, so I had to, for a while, until I got back to my fighting weight.
Your suit, your style's never varied, you say. Because I remember in your book you say you had lost your luggage in Australia.
Oh yeah, that changed.
And
my
then
look
you were only wearing jeans and a leather jacket. And you said there's a funny line in there. You're like, "There's no way I'd be seen dead wearing that on stage." Right.
So they sent me to the TV studios where they did period dramas, you know, costume dramas and that. So I thought, well, this is easy. I'll just go in there.
For like Australian television?
Yeah, that's right. So I went up to there. I said, well, take me to the 60s, you know, late 50s, early 60s. I'll get a Ivy League suit from there, you know. And so I did that. But Australians are real big Irish people, you know, and they all buried me, you know, and all that. So I thought, this is nothing for me here, you know. And I didn't have time to have them altered at the tailors. So I said, okay, I'm going to go the other extreme. Take me to the 19th century. So I got this Doc Holliday frock coat, you know, which actually did fit me. And a ruffled shirt. And that sort of altered my look for a while. I kind of quite liked it, to tell you the truth. I've always liked the look of Doc Holliday anyway. I've always sort of gone for that look. You know, it's a good look, isn't it?
The gunfighters.
With the frock coat, you know, but the city dwelling.
The long coat, where you could hide like a sawed-off shotgun behind you.
It. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that was good. That was good. It was a good change of mood for a while. Apart from that, my default setting even now is a high break jacket and flat front pants. You know, Rat Pack. But I've got into this now. I've got loads of these ones now that button up to the neck, you know, these kind of, you know,
Yeah.
sort of beetle-y kind of.
And you always got like a nice kind of thin Italian, like kind of silk scarf.
Yeah, I love these. It's not silk, it's rayon, but it's a firm in England called Tootle. And whenever you see pictures of Paul Weller or Tootle,
they're wearing Tootle scarves.
They're wearing these, yeah.
Really?
It hangs better than silk. It hangs better.
How long have you been wearing those?
I got a million of these, but this is my personal favourite. I've been wearing this one so long. I've never done this before. I've worn it out.
Wow.
I've never worn a scarf out before.
Wow.
Look at that. Look. It's freeing.
Wow.
My favourite scarf. Beautiful scarf.
Just like bought this in Barcelona like
no, that's nice.
20 years ago.
It's beautiful.
And it's not the same good quality, but it's also
awesome.
It's getting pretty worn out.
Yeah, they're nice when they get like that.
Yeah.
But this is rayon, you know, it hangs nicer than silk. And also Tootle, they I think they had a connection with India because
they got the nice fabrics.
They alone can get this red. It's called madder red, and it's from some, plant in India. It's peculiar to India.
Yeah.
See how it is red, but it ain't vivid. It ain't like scratch your eyes out red, is it? It's called madder red. And you got cravats, ties, handkerchiefs, all in this. It was all the rage in the late 20th century, late 19th century. Nice though, isn't it?
I love your style. Love the way you dress. Love the way you move on stage.
Coming back at you.
And then another cool thing I got from you, the influence. We played in Los Angeles when I opened for you the last time you toured here, and we went to this French restaurant, and you knew the owner, Francoise, and she said, I remember you. You wear Chanel 19. And I was like,
oh, that was it. Yeah,
I was like, what? After dinner or whatever, I was like, what? What's Chanel? What's she talking about? What's Chanel 19? So are you still wearing Chanel 19?
No, I'm not. You can't get. You can only get it at Selfridges on Oxford Street in London. It has limited outlets, So I'm not there very often. So no. Now the default setting with me is either Opium for Men, Yves Saint Laurent, or Ralph Lauren Polo. Green bottle.
Yeah.
I wore that.
But
there's another one.
Do you want to smell me?
Oh, you smell always.
Do you recognize it?
I could eat you.
Do you recognize it?
What is it?
Chanel 19.
Yeah. You can't. You don't know what it is when you wear it yourself. You know what I mean, do you? So.
Yeah.
Let me have another. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's one of the coolest things. I got so many cool things I learned from you, and that.
Well, the main thing is I learned it from chicks.
Yeah.
What do we care? You know what I mean? It's chicks don't like it. Fuck that.
Exactly.
But I watched this program in England called The Girly Show, and they did a blind sort of tasting of men's perfumes, and they were unanimous in Opium for Men.
That was the one.
That was the one then.
And that's when you started.
But you can't get that everywhere.
Yeah.
It's another one you can't get everywhere, but if you're in London, it's really top dollar. And it's a bisexual one. I bought one for me, my wife, and one for me. It's so nice. You wouldn't want to. It's called Portrait of a Lady. It's
You've been wearing it?
Yeah,
I like it.
I've not got it on now. I ain't got it on now. I've got Polo now, but at home.
Have you ever, what do you think of
Napoleon? Is that the one by...
I got a couple of Napoleon books. Where's
the one by Andrew Roberts?
I read that one.
Great, isn't it?
Which is this one right here.
Yeah, my wife read that.
Yeah, this one's great. This is the one I read. Napoleon
That's
the Great.
him, yeah. Great.
So from this book I learned Napoleon thought if you had sex with a woman for longer than 3 minutes, you were wasting your time. So he wasn't a good lover. He wasn't. Let's say he wasn't.
Sometimes less is more.
Let's say he wanted to get back with the fellas. He had
business in town.
He wasn't an attentive lover.
He had business.
And then the other thing I learned from this book is Napoleon never ate vegetables.
Chicken.
He only ate meat.
Chicken, especially.
Chicken, yeah.
He loved chicken. chicken merengue.
To a guy who doesn't eat vegetables and doesn't...
What a guy, though. You can still see the evidence of his great engineering feats in France even today. You know, they're still being utilised.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lucky people that got over... He stopped people murdering each other. He was nothing but good.
Now, is it true that...
they were killing... They were knee-deep in human blood.
You know so many things.
Stop that.
The reason English people drive on the left and everybody else on the right is because in Napoleon, that the conquering army would drive on the right side of the road.
Is that a fact? I didn't know that.
And that the other people had to be off on the other side and get out of their way.
Okay.
But I don't know if...
Maybe it is.
I've never confirmed this.
Maybe it is. You know, they made a point in the Napoleon era, because you've got to hate the enemy or you can't fight them.
Yeah.
You've got to dehumanize them and hate everything about them. Otherwise, what's the point of going and trying to kill them?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? You've got to do that. It's fucking part of the rules of war. And they would mispronounce French. It became a matter of honour for English people to deliberately mispronounce French, you know. And a point of honour, which it still pertains today.
Well,
our memory is long and our vengeance is total.
I like that. I read that sentence in your book.
You did? Huh?
Where did you get that from?
$1 Billion Brain, starring Michael Caine and Ed Begley.
Really? Because you said that in a book and I highlighted it. You said my memory is long and my vengeance is total.
Yeah.
Have you ever read this book? A Criminal History of Mankind.
Oh, who wrote that?
That's an intense book.
That sounds it.
Man, there's some
Colin Wilson. He was the guy, the outsider. He was the guy who went to live on the Hampstead Heath in a tent.
Seriously?
In the 50s, yeah. He was like a kind of proto-beatnik.
Really?
Yeah, dropout. He was a dropout.
Wow.
He'd been educated at Oxford.
What else did he write?
Brain. He wrote. That's the only thing.
Because that's
he wrote other things other than. But The Outsider was the one that introduced him to the British public as a kind of angry young man.
And that's the name of the book?
Yeah,
The Outsider. Wow.
Not to be confused with
S.E. Hinton.
With
The Outsiders.
With Albert Camus.
Oh yeah,
L'étranger. That's the English title is The Outsider. To be honest, I prefer Albert Camus. The Outsider's great, isn't it?
I love Camus.
The one where he kills the Arab.
Yeah, that's...
he describes that scene, you know, it's like a psycho killing.
Yeah.
He hasn't got any control over the situation.
Yeah.
It's a great piece of writing.
I haven't read that in a long
Nobody
time.
had ever fucking put that down on paper before.
Yeah.
He thought he saw the glint of a knife in the afternoon sun. You know, the angle, it's all about the angle of the sun and it reflecting off the sea and these suspect Arabs. And of course, he was a bit Arab himself, Albert Camus, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's Algerian, right?
But, he mistrusts. They're like that. My brother-in-law's an Arab and, he's always having a go at Arabs. And he turns around to me and says, Arabs, no education. So they're very down on, they're not kind of one of these people, they're very hardline.
Mm-hmm.
My brother-in-law's doing it because he's a kind of civil engineer, he's a very scientific guy, he don't have any time for any kind of death cults or religions of any sort. If ever there was a born atheist, it's him. And yet he knows the Quran back to front. And he'll pick them up on it in French, He went to an Indian restaurant that's just opened up in our neighbourhood, where I live, and, they were staying with us, and they went in there and he was looking around and he was like, why don't you sell beer? And they were all like, oh, don't you want to succeed? People like beer, Sell beer, you make money. You know what I mean? And you can't argue with that. Business is business. Whatever. All
right, let me ask you, you're an English poet. What do you think of Lord Byron?
I like Lord Byron. Yeah, I like the idea of him, and I think his look has persisted into the world of the Goths. Even Elvis has a Byronic kind of thing. Why did he dye his hair black? You know what I'm saying? Rudolph Valentino. There's a bit of Rudolph Valentino, but also that Byronic thing. Mad, bad, dangerous to know. You know,
mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
That was Byron's.
That's how they described him, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Was it his ex-wife or somebody described him like that?
Yeah, that's right. Was it Lady Caroline Lamb, perhaps? One of his extra.
One of his exes, the Annabella Milbank was the woman he married.
That's who he married. Right?
So when I was a kid, I lived on Lord Byron Road. I never knew what I always knew he was like the king of the romantics.
That's right.
So when I did that tour in England in 2019, when I came and visited you, I bought these Lord Byron books. I read these books. This is Byron, the Years of Fame. And then this book was written by this same guy. It's Byron in Italy after he flees England.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the story of his life. He fucked his half-sister.
Yeah.
And had a baby with her.
Uh-huh.
And then he married this woman. He's like he's a rock star and he's partying and he's doing, opium and drinking like a fiend, and he's hanging out in the theater in Soho and having sex with actresses. Guy's having fun. He marries this woman, Annabella Milbank, thinking, I don't know, that she's gonna all of a sudden he's gonna become a respectable person or something. But he treated her like shit. They were only married for a year, and drunkenly a few times he said to her, talking about his sister's kid, hey, you know whose kid that is, right? He drunkenly, he was psychologically abusive to Annabella Milbank, and it was horrible to her. She was giving birth to their kid, and he was throwing champagne bottles at the ceiling, telling her to keep it down. He was drunk downstairs, total asshole.
Yeah.
So she divorces him, and her and her mother spread the very true rumor that he had not only had sex with his sister, but had a baby. So that was the scandal. Then it was like Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places. All his rich friends didn't want to know him anymore.
They all dropped him.
So everybody drops him. He's not getting invited to the parties. And he's persona non grata in England. So he flees. Oh, and Napoleon was his hero. He thought Napoleon, everyone in England and
Europe, all liked him.
Everyone hated Napoleon. He thought Napoleon was the only man who was his equal.
Yeah. He had a lot of. That's what I mean about the kind of American Revolution, and because they happened within 2 years of each other or something, didn't they? The French Revolution and then the American.
There was 20 years apart.
Was it
1770, no, 10 years apart.
Yeah, it was very, very
1870
close together.
or 86,
and
I think.
And those Republicans, that's what they had in common. They were Republicans, and so they looked with great interest to France and America.
He had.
Hence, Francis Scott Key, he would have probably been a second string romantic poet.
He had
but nevertheless, he was beholden to the idea of republicanism. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then he died in Greece fighting get the Greece liberated from the Turks, right?
Turks, yeah.
So one of Napoleon's personal carriage had been captured in some war, and Byron had so much money, he had Napoleon's carriage perfectly replicated.
Oh, did he?
So he's cruising around in Napoleon's, replicated carriage. So in 2019, when I did that tour in England, when I was opening for Reg Hunter, I read these books and I'm reading Byron. So at the end of the tour, I would do this thing at the end of my set. I would get 3 people. I'd say, I need you, when I finish reading this thing, I want you to, and I would tell the story about how Byron had impregnated his sister, and that's why he fled England, because I was so blown away to learn this. So I'd choose 3 people out of the audience, and I'd say, okay, when I finish reading this, I'm going to point to you, and I want you to say, thank you, Tom. And then person number 2, I want you to say, we love knowledge. And then person number 3, I want you to yell, but he fucked his sister. So this is the thing that I would read. From Brussels, they took horse to... So he flees... This is when he leaves England from the scandal. And they land in Belgium. And they're going to Italy and then Switzerland. So he... And this is only a couple years after Waterloo, after the... Napoleon was defeated there.
Yeah.
So he gets to... So this is the part I would read. From Brussels, they took horse to the field of Waterloo. And here at last was a scene that Byron found stimulating. His own career had often been likened to Napoleon's, and not by hyperbolic admirers alone. For he, too, in his stormier and more arrogant moments, saw and admitted a parallelism between their destinies. He had been damn sorry when he had heard the news of Napoleon's fall. Now himself fallen, defeated, in exile, he rode slowly with Polidori across, that was his valet, across the pastoral upland where the peasants were whistling as they worked in the fields. And only patched plaster on farmhouse walls showed the effects of artillery fire. The farms of Hougoumont, however, was still in ruins. 1,500 Englishmen had been slaughtered just beyond its garden. Here the Scots Greys had parted their ranks to allow a masked battery to pour its broadsides into the waves of furiously advancing corsairs. There, through a gap in the garden hedge, the French had charged again after dreadful losses. Meanwhile, peasant boys with glittering handfuls of buttons, ran beside their stirrups. There were French cockades on sale, swords, eagles, and helmets. Breastplates scarred with bullets and dinted and seamed by lance or saber. Always a great collector of tokens and trophies, Byron made some purchases to send back to England. Then they turned their horses' heads and galloped homewards, helter-skelter, over the springy turf of the battlefield, Byron chanting the refrain of a Turkish song.
Wow.
Thank you, Tom. We love knowledge. Buddy fucked his sister. Amazing.
That's amazing.
So did you like Byron growing up? Is there a certain Byron poem?
We didn't get him at school.
No.
Really, I tell you to go for I like Tennyson. I like kind of the epic medievalism of somebody like Tennyson. You know.
I've never read it. What's his stuff like? Is it more like Homer?
The Lady of Shalott. You know, it's kind of it's kind of medieval. It's fetishistic and medieval in the way that the kind of pre-Raphaelites were in painting. That's how he was in verse, you know, this mysterious woman, the Lady of Shalott.
What?
It's a great piece of work. About 25 pages long.
Yeah.
But he mainly did like iambic pentameters, you know, that sort of 5-beat ba 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. You know, it was so everybody falls for that scheme, you know, the 5-beat.
Yeah.
You know,
but wasn't Byron, his was all like kind of heroic.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Tale poetry,
I like
right?
Shelley, that Shelley's more kind of effeminate. I kind of like him as well. He's very kind of effete. And he's not so militaristic as Lord Byron. You know, he would sort of fit in with today's crowd, really, I think, a bit better than Byron.
What's Shelley's greatest
The
works?
Sensitive Plant, The Mask of Anarchy, Prometheus Unbound, you know. Where they all leave me behind, really, is that there are a lot of classical references in their work that in those days, you know, before mass literacy, you know, only really the rarefied people learnt to read. So, they got a thorough education in the classics. It's like, I don't know who said it, but, in every area of life, more means worse. So, although mass literacy is, where would I be without it?
Yeah.
But, it ain't as thorough. People are not as thorough as they were then. They were given set texts from all over the world, including the ancient Latin, Greco-Latin world, that I got to say I'm not really party to. I only know that whatever Latin I learned at a Catholic school, you know what I'm saying? It's not really anything that would qualify me in the world of jurisprudence or medicine. But, those people like Byron and that, they'd had a thorough education and that, they did the Grand Tour.
The Grand Tour they invented, right? Which was these rich English guys
because they hark back to the classical world,
in search of romanticism. The original muses of...
the muses, that's right, Yeah, and the grammar of Latin, they introduced the grammar of Latin into English letters. And, I'm sure it was to the benefit of English letters, but I'm so ill-educated that I don't know why. But I'm sure that it did, But I also have a chip on my shoulder about any club that I'm not entitled to join, you know what I mean? I don't want to go in there anyway. Motherfucker.
And that's how you feel about...
Stick it where the sun don't shine, then. And that's how I feel about classical reference points. I'm the same way about Shakespeare. Even though I know how great he is, it's a hole in which I've seen people just completely disappear.
Yeah.
It's like if I'd have seen Elvis. What's the point of going to see anybody else after that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just going to be a pale shadow of the original experience, isn't it? So in a way, it's good that I didn't see Elvis. Because I saw the Rolling Stones and, the Velvet Underground, If I'd have seen Elvis, I'd have been all like, well, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I know rock and roll. Forget about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's so... I'm like that with classics and Shakespeare, though,
So you're not into Shakespeare?
No.
Yeah.
I watch the movies. I like Henry V with Sir Laurence Olivier. It's a great piece of movie making. And it's a great story, obviously, it's beautifully written, I ain't knocking it. There's a lot of things in life.
Was that a
lot of things in life that I won't get involved with because I know how good they are.
Yeah.
I'm a surface skimmer. That's my thing. That's what I do. I'm fucking shallow. I get my shtick from first impressions and then I work it up. I'm not a great analyzer.
Yeah.
In that sort of meticulous way that the classicists are. I couldn't be if I tried, and it's too late now. I missed that bus a long time ago. So I've got that kind of stick it where the sun don't shine kind of attitude. The fault is mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some things that grab you, some things don't.
Yeah, but
I feel the same way about Shakespeare.
I know they would grab me. It's just,
when I've tried to read Shakespeare, it puts me to sleep.
This is why I haven't got a computer, Tom, because I know how good they are. If I had a computer, you'd find me... If somebody bought me a computer, you would find me 6 weeks later dead under a pile of pizza boxes. I know how good they are. That's why I haven't got one. It's that or a career.
There's certain... I love it. There's certain classic people that I've wanted to read. I'm trying to catch up on, like Balzac.
But it's worth persevering because I love a circular conversation. It's worth persevering. I'll say it in one word, J.D. Salinger. Catcher in
Coming back on that,
I mean, I'm glad I persevered with that. I would have missed out on a great deal there if I'd never got that. I'd have gone to the grave not having been entertained royally.
It's easy to read Salinger's...
I've not read anything else.
Yeah, Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters.
Oh, that's right. I saw that in the list.
He's only wrote like 3 or 4 books.
Yeah.
I was into him when I was younger. Have you ever read Balzac?
No.
Cousin Betty I read, which was great.
No,
I've always wanted to read Balzac, so I've always collected his books when I've found them in
I'll tell you, I
used
did read
bookstores.
a bit of when I was in France. Rabelais.
Oh, Gargantua. What's the book called?
What was it? It was just a book. I can't remember what it was called, but it had this line in it. We reached our accommodation. Its facade was redolent of the visage of one of those women who has a face like the front of a house. You got to think about that one. It's real funny. Very modern. It's very modern humour.
Face like the front of a house.
Yeah, we reached our accommodation. Its facade was redolent of the visage of one of those women who has a face that resembles the front of a house. Sometimes you have to write it down and look at it.
What does visage mean?
Face, you know.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to, it's worded so carefully so that he's not repeating, you know, it's beautifully crafted piece of work, you know, whereby the end takes you completely. But I'm not going to over-explain it, but just get it right. We reached our accommodation. Its facade was redolent of the visage of one of those women who has a face that resembles the front of a house. So it's a kind of a round, you know, it's a circular thing. Beautiful, that.
Beautiful.
I like him. I like, have you got Against Nature?
By who?
By J.K. Huysmans.
I don't have that.
H-U-Y.
I do have the joys of
the joys of Yiddish. Leo Roston, I got that. And there's a follow-up as well, You Don't Have to Be Jewish. Yeah, same guy.
One of
good, isn't it? It's got a gag that explains the context of every Yiddish word in there.
Yeah,
it's got a gag added to it.
Yeah, it's like a fun dictionary.
Oh, it's a beautiful book.
My first love of my adult life was with a woman from Paris, so I'm huge Francophile. I know you lean that way yourself in some ways.
Yeah, sure.
The greatest gift she turned me on to Maupassant.
Oh, he was a playwright.
He's the greatest short story writer.
Short stories.
His short stories are amazing. There's one short story called Femme Fatale. And it's written like the 1880s, 1890s. And this guy, he's on vacation with this girl. They're by the river, like in the French countryside. But he's a real douche. And he's real controlling. And he doesn't know how to hang out or even talk to a woman. And this woman, there's these lesbians who had rented a house on the island, on the river.
Yeah.
And the girl knew one of the lesbians. And then her and the guy get into a fight, and she goes and stays with the lesbians on the island for like a couple days. And this guy's out of his mind with rage. He thinks they're disgusting, like subhuman, because they're lesbians. And he even made some terrible jokes.
Well, that's all.
And this is like 1880, the guy writes this. And then she ends up telling the guy to buzz off, and she's having more fun with the lesbian women.
Sure she is.
And she decides to stay there, and then the guy drowns himself in the river.
Shit.
Femme fatale. Guy de Maupassant.
But I don't know a guy that ain't, like, you know, turned on by the idea of lesbianism.
What?
In fact, I can't, in England anyway, I don't know what it's like in America, but I can find I don't know why lesbians are lumped in with the sort of LGBTQ expanding alphabet of victimization shtick. I don't think they really belong there because there's never been a law against them. Queen Victoria refused to admit that it existed, so she didn't sign it off. You know, who cared?
Yeah.
I had a great aunt. I'm sure she was a lesbian. She lived with a woman of her own age, you know, but nobody said anything about it. Companionship.
Yeah.
You know, if it had been two guys, it'd have been like, what's going on here? But I don't think anybody is really, truly outraged by lesbianism. I think You know, I can't see them as you'd have to ask them. I mean, you know, obviously I'm not a lesbian. Unless fancying chicks is the only consideration.
No, you seem to
In which case I've got a lot in common with them.
Yeah.
But, you know, where have they been you know, where are the great injustices to lesbians, really? I mean, we know about people like Alan Turing and people guys whose careers were ruined. I don't think people think lesbianism is it's nothing in the Bible about it, even if you want to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the point of the sentence where man shall not lay down with man? There's nothing about lesbianism in there at all.
Yeah, doesn't say women shouldn't lay down with women.
Seeing women kiss women it's been around for ages.
Yeah.
It's just started, men kissing men. I don't like it really, but you know, it's just started, that sort of thing. But women have always kissed women and things like that. I think people have always been quite tolerant of, you know, I mean, what's wrong with it? Who can blame them?
Yeah.
Who can blame them? As a guy, you can't blame them.
Women are softer, they're smarter, they're nicer to hang out with.
Would you like some guy bouncing around on top of you? Huh? Would you? Well then. Yeah, good luck to him. I never met a lesbian I didn't like.
Amen. I agree. You ready for a smoke break?
Yeah.
All right, let's have a smoke.
Yeah, I never met a lesbian I didn't like. There was what was it called? Was it Louise's? Back in the punk days. In London. Everybody used to go there after the show.
To Louise's.
Louise's, I think it was called. It was a lesbian club in Soho in London. And, you know, all the punks used to go in there because you wouldn't get bothered.
Yeah.
Nobody would bother you for any reason at all.
Who's your favorite lesbian of all time?
Favourite lesbian of all time? It's got to be
Joan of Arc.
An ex-girlfriend of mine.
Yeah, okay.
An ex-girlfriend of mine. And she probably isn't. She's a grandma now anyway. I think she just did it for a while. But without a doubt, the best lesbian I've ever known was Sandra Goodrich.
Why?
She's still around. She's a pocket Venus. She's a grandma. She's still as gorgeous now as the day when I met her. She was a head turner even on the King's Road. Sensational. She's a troublemaker though. She's a troublemaker.
In what way? Political?
You're going to get thrown out of places with her.
Oh, okay. She got to fight somebody.
Yeah.
Break some glass.
Yeah. She drinks. She likes her drink. But, you know, she's had loads of celebrity drinking pals. One of them was Burt Kwok, you know, the Chinese actor that played Kato in the Pink Panther films. And he was in Dr. No. Whenever they needed a central casting Chinese actor, it was... he was in Love Is a Many Splendid Thing with William Holden and Nancy Kwan, was it? You know, yeah, he was the all-purpose go-to central casting Chinaman. But he was a proper actor, you know. He'd done Shakespeare. Yeah, that was her last drinking partner. She buried a lot of drinking partners. You know, she's hardcore chick, but delicate, beautiful, pretty. Nice. Great chick. Sandra Goodrich.
Sandra Goodrich.
Lucy and Freud painted her one time.
Seriously?
Yeah. She was connected. Everybody was fascinated by her. She ran the first kissogram agency in
Kissogram?
London.
You could send someone a kiss?
She started that.
Seriously?
Yes, kissogram. Special occasion. She had like gay guys. She had one guy, Anthony, dressed up like Tarzan in one of those off-the-shoulder leopard things, you know what I mean? And she'd send them out all over London, you know, on these sort of...
you could send someone a kiss?
Jump up out of a cake and that, you know, and she had chicks, beautiful chicks, dressed up as police women and nuns and nurses and strict teachers and, you know, sort of all that kind of shit, you know, but it was great. And her headquarters was her apartment, and she lived right opposite Ronnie Scott's.
Yeah.
On
I know where that is,
Fritz Street. Yeah. Yeah, we'd be in bed and the window was right behind the headboard, and you'd look out in the morning, you'd get the waft of espresso coffee from the Bar Italia downstairs, and there'd be the neon saxophone opposite of Ronnie Scott, right in the heart of real Tin Pan Alley, Soho. She was great, yeah, Sandra Goodr. Check her out. She left me for a guy, it's in the book anyway, she left me for a guy called Zodiac Mind Warp.
What?
It was a one-hit wonder with a song called 20,000 Women.
Wow. And she was one of them.
She ran off with the motherfucker. I lost her.
She thought, here's a guy who's got some experience.
But I treated her bad. I was always pouncing. She was loaded when I was just a skint junkie, It was in the wilderness years. So I was always borrowing money and never paying it back and things. So quite rightly, she ditched me, man. What
was the guy's name?
Zodiac Mind Warp.
Zodiac Mind
Warp. It was on TV and shit. It was like a sort of punk hippie type.
Wow.
Yeah, 20,000 Women. That was his big hit. It was a hit as well. It was a top 10 hit. Smash.
I love you, John.
Before that, she was going around with a guy called Tim Pope, who was a video maker, very successful video maker at the time, that did prize-winning videos for Susie and the Banshees and The Cure.
Great bands.